Coming to you from sunny California and the Great White North. Get ready. We are breaking down the obstacles on the Armchair Ninja Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Armchair Ninja Podcast. It is Friday, December 9th, 2016. My name is Rich, and joining me once again this week is Bijan. How you making out?
It's a calm before the storm, man. Finals week coming up, so these next eight days, no sleep for me. Just constant studying. It's going to be a nightmare.
Oh, yeah, I suppose. Oh, my God. You know how long it's been since I've had to do, like, tests and exams and stuff? That must be fun to try to squeeze in with a work schedule and recording this craziness.
Oh, yeah. Work pretty much full-time, in grad school, half-time. Gotta love it, guys. So much fun. And I somehow have to have a life in between that, too. Yeah, great times.
Oh, what do you need a life for when you've got school and work and podcasting to keep you busy?
I know, right?
And Team Ninja Warrior. We can't forget about Team Ninja Warrior. All the excitement that we had in this episode. This is just amazing.
This episode, bro. Oh, my God. This was painful. I mean, it was going to happen sooner or later. You know, we have every season we have to have a snoozer. This was the one. Hopefully from here on out, it'll get better from here.
Yeah, I feel like episode 3 is a good place to squeeze that one in, right? You got to put your good foot forward with episode 1. Episode 2, you don't want to lose them, so you got to kind of have it middle of the road. And then, you know, episode 3 is where you're like, all right, we got them hooked. If they're watching at this point, they're probably going to stick with us through the end. We can probably throw in the bad one here.
Yep, it's the truth, man. With that said, this episode wasn't completely like a complete turd or anything. There was some good stuff in it, and we'll go through it. But overall, this episode was kind of a disappointment.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, there was a couple of standouts, and we'll get through those. We'll also be covering the National Ninja League. They were at Apex NorCal. And, yeah, let's get into it.
Let's do it, man.
So we had USC Trojans versus the UCLA Bruins and the Stanford Cardinal, singular for some reason, versus Colorado Buffalo. So we had picked Stanford to win this episode, hadn't we?
Yeah, but oh boy. Well, more than anything else, I want to say the story of this episode, more than anything else, was every team. Your team can only be as strong as your weakest, player or member, and that was very much the story of this episode. We had some incredibly strong teams, but they were kind of held down by one, athlete or team member per team, and it really made all the difference.
Wow, I didn't note that at all. I actually hadn't paid any attention to that part of it. To me, it seemed like it was just.
Oh, it stood out like a sore thumb to me, man.
It seemed like we had. I've seen that in other episodes where I felt like we had, one or two people that really kind of dragged down the team. And this one, I felt like we had people falling all over the place, people struggling everywhere. It seemed like almost every team, almost every person was really having a rough go of it.
I think there were some incredibly strong members of each team, but for every team there was one member that was incredibly inexperienced. I can't say they were bad because they're all coming from very athletic backgrounds, but they clearly didn't know what they were doing. And that was the story of it. And I've got to say, man, it was very unfortunate, but for as much as we sing the praises of the women, I have to call a spade, and this was not a good night for the women.
I like some of the matchups, I guess. They had struggles on the warped wall and things like that, which I don't mind. And actually, one of my favorite runs of the night was between two of the women when they, both made it to the warped wall. But, yeah, I wouldn't.
That was one matchup, though, man.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah, it was. I really can't say too much good about any of the competitors in this episode, unfortunately. There was one or two standouts that did pretty well, but no real top-notch athletes that stood out to me. I was kind of thinking, who's going to get who's going to be the athletically profound athlete this week? Because I really had struggled to find one.
Really, I've got a good 3, man. I got a good 3. I'll reveal it at the end of this recap who my pick is, but I definitely think there was some standouts.
Okay, so let's go through. The first matchup was UCLA versus USC. It was like the hometown rivalry we got going here. Crowd was really loud, or they pumped it up, one or the other. But anyway, it seemed like it was very...
Well, this was at one of the campuses, right? Like in LA?
Yeah, it was very nearby, so it makes sense for them to be pretty populated.
Yeah, so you have to imagine most of the people there were rooting for these teams.
So, yeah, I mean, if I had to pick one out of this matchup, I mean, it's kind of, whatever at the beginning. They one, kind of went a little faster with the guys, and one of the girls fell in the cargo net. I mean, Vaughn was pretty good. We had James Vaughn, the pull ahead and win. So for UCLA, he was the guy who was a highliner, which actually was probably one of the best clips of the whole episode. Was him.
We got to talk about this, bro.
Oh my god!
Like, I think I woke up the entire neighborhood because they were showing these highlighting scenes. He's like above these. I don't even know how to describe it. He's like hundreds of feet in the air on this little tiny tightrope, and all I could do was shout the entire time from my room. It's like, nope. No way in hell. Oh, hell no. Like, I couldn't believe it. Nah. You could say, hey, Bijan, I'll give you $1 million to do this. And I'd be like, you can go screw yourself. Not happening.
Yeah, I can't see me doing it either. I don't mind heights, but that is pretty extreme. And even he who does it is saying, like, that he has to work up, his nerves get the better of him sometimes at the beginning. He has to kind of force himself to do it. And the mustache. We kind of have to mention the mustache, too. That's a pretty epic mustache.
Hey, he's got an awesome mustache, man. Good for him. He can rock it. If he's doing that kind of stuff, he has earned that mustache.
he just sprouts it instantly as soon as he gets on that line. It just...
Mustache and chest hair, man.
But UCLA wiped the floor with them. They ended up winning the whole thing. But the matchup itself was kind of whatever. He did okay. It was not... I mean, by comparison, he did fantastic, but he was just okay. I don't think it really stood out too much there.
No, but with that said, I actually liked Vonnegut and who was his other... Allen, right? Carter Allen, yeah. Carter Allen and Vonnegut both stood out. Not like they weren't phenomenal, but they were very competent and good. And for this type of competition, you want a series or a team that all three members are at least good. And I feel like this team kind of fit that mold. I was actually fairly impressed with how well rounded this team actually was. Yeah,
I guess if I had to pick one, definitely they stood out. I mean, they ended up winning, spoiler, but they deserved to win. I guess if I had to pick one team out of the four, I would say that they definitely earned it, and they were the most well-rounded. Carter Allen at times was good. James... kept saying Vaughn, didn't I? And it's Vaughan or... Anyway. James was okay. Amanda was okay. It was just okay overall. That's like kind of how I feel about the whole episode was just okay. They were
decent. Yeah, they were decent. They weren't amazing like any of the other two teams making it to the championships, but they were decent. And as I said, when it gets to going to the relay, you want a team that's well-rounded. You don't want a team where you have an incredibly strong member and two, weaker members.
Yeah, so moving on, we had the Stanford versus Colorado matchup. And
oh boy, okay.
This was like the beginning of
this was interesting, man. Because I'll say I was incredibly disappointed, first of all, with the women's matchup. I expected a lot more, and I thought maybe this is an aberration. Maybe they'll get another chance, and I must say, I wasn't too impressed with the one. Well, one in particular, I forgot her name.
Roshana.
Yeah. She seems like a great girl. She's really impressive with all of her feats in life. Like, good on her. And it could be a thing of experience, so I don't want to, knock her too much, but I don't know if this sport is necessarily for her. You can be incredibly athletic in various feats and different other things, but, this type of sport is very technical, and you either have it or you have that willingness and you don't. And it seemed both Roshana and the competitor that she was up against, which was Alexandra, they were so tentative at the beginning and they were so careful with everything. And typically I say, it's okay to be careful, but it was almost a carefulness where they were scared to go forward of every single movement. And for this type of sport, you kind of just have to just say screw it and just go on with it. You have to be confident in what you're doing. And you really saw a tentativeness that really affected them to a T.
Yeah, and I don't know. She ended up going in the Ring of Fire in this one, and then later she doesn't do so well either. So I guess she would be one of the ones you were talking about earlier. And I do have a good note here. Nam Kwang was actually really good. You know, he started off really fast, and then Reedy started catching up, and that was when I was getting excited. I was like, okay, so we've got a good matchup here. You know, that was an exciting one.
That was the next thing I was going to say, man. I don't know about you, but the highlight of this entire episode for me was the matchup between Nam and Reed, because both of those guys were really good. And I was so excited. I'm like, these are two guys that actually have experience in this. And it really showed, especially after the girls matchup, where you can tell both the women weren't experienced at all with this. These guys really showed a lot of grit, a lot of heart. You know, they're going back and forth in terms of placement. It was really fun. I definitely think that was a highlight of the episode.
Yeah, but here's where my issue with it is, and with the other ones too. Normally when we see, you know, kind of the back and forth, it's really exciting because someone's really putting it all on the line to get past the other one. We had so many people changing leads because the person in the lead just completely, fails or gets stuck, or just, and this wasn't that much different. Nam absolutely crazy at the beginning, and then just kind of fetches up on the pole grasper, and Reedy starts catching up. You know, he did, manage to maintain the lead, but he just, more than once through this episode, there was people that were on that pole grasper, and that's kind of like the theme of this episode is, the pole grasper was where all of the
pole grasper and that transition with the rope swing. Like, what was going on, dude? That is not something that really trips up a lot of people, but that rope swing was getting everybody.
Yeah, like how is that an obstacle? Well, I mean, it is an obstacle, but not one you normally see people fall on.
Yeah, because people were just jumping into it, and the thing is, you have to grab it and pull it back, because if you jump into it, it just drops down. So, and I was like, how are people not learning from other people's mistakes? Like, see what's going on, guys. Like, it was getting frustrating for me because that is such a small mistake that you clearly can realize and learn from if you just watch somebody else making that same mistake. And they had so many other opportunities in this episode to learn from it. I couldn't believe people were still making that mistake later on in the episode.
Yeah, we had 1, 2, 3, I think 4 people, basically 3 or 4 different people go out on the rope swing of all places.
That is 3 too many.
Yeah, for sure.
I just want to give a quick little shout out to Nam. He was incredibly impressive. I haven't seen somebody be that fluid and dynamic when it comes to balance and range with the lower body and the comfort level in a very long time. It was very just amazing to watch how comfortable he was with all these lower body obstacles. It's incredibly clear the upper body obstacles is his downfall, and that's something maybe he can work on, and I'm pretty sure he realizes what his weakness is. But just in terms of the lower level, I haven't seen that type of range in a very long time. Really impressed me.
All right, so Stanford ended up taking it, which meant that UCLA ended up going against Colorado in the next matchup. It was weird because the Colorado team was a bunch of climbers, and then watch Matt Normile getting hung up on the pole grasper and just looking like he was in a world of pain.
That was really weird.
Yeah, but at the same time, props to him, man. He made it through. I thought for sure he was not getting through that obstacle, but he gritted through it. You could see he was in a lot of pain, but he did make it through all the way through eventually.
Yeah. I was very curious what was going on there. He was sliding down, and I think the problem is that these guys were... I'm very curious to see, other than Reed and Nam, how many people have very much experience on a lot of obstacles, because in terms of technique, a lot of these people were, I can't say doing it wrong, but it was more, you can just tell they were trying to just get by on their athleticism and their strength, Like the situation that we're talking about here, the guy is just grabbing onto these poles, not grabbing onto the gripped yellow parts of it, just grabbing onto the silver part, sliding down, but just trying to grab onto the next one and the next one, sliding lower and lower each time, just trying to be strong and grip it up. And that's not the way to do it, guys. And I think it's pretty clear it's not the way to do it. So I don't know. And I saw that a lot this episode where there's a lot of people just trying to just fling themselves into these obstacles, not really think about how they're going to do it, just trying to get there quicker. And that's not the way to win this type of stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure though too, right? Like this, if you're going to be doing these things for the first time, do you really want to be doing it with a great big audience and your school pride at stake and there's somebody beside you and they're going fast? So, I mean, as much as I've given them a lot of heck this episode, it is, to be fair, it is a lot of pressure and not as easy as it looks, I'm sure.
No, but still, if you're doing these obstacles, you need to know what you're doing.
So in that matchup, actually, the Carter
Allen.
Yeah. Carter was like all beat up by the end of it. He had blood and a bump on his head, and he was like...
Do you know how he got that hit on his head?
No.
I didn't see it.
Actually, what's funny is I thought when we were doing this that you were going to, since you usually play the episode as we're going through, I thought you're going to tell me how he got that bump, because I didn't notice it and I didn't go back to see.
That's a good point. I do have it here. Let me see. I have to imagine it was a pole grasper.
Could be. He fell, didn't he? He almost went off the course coming off of one of them. Maybe it was there.
Let's see. I'm going to rewatch this, so we can pause it if you want to. Let's see. So I'm curious now.
Let's do this real time. Everybody bear with us a second. We're just going to rewind it here. And
oh, God. Poor listeners. Nothing yet. I don't know. He's on the cargo net right now, and nothing's coming even close to his face. So it has to be the pole grasper. That's the only thing. Let's see. He's getting close to it, and he's jumping on. Hasn't hit his head yet. Huh. I don't know. It looks like he already has that thing on him, but I didn't really see him run into anything. Yep. Sorry. Mystery unsolved. There's nothing I'm seeing in this video replay that's anything coming close to his face. I could not tell you how he got it.
That's weird. Yeah.
Maybe it was his previous run? I feel like they would have highlighted that, though.
Yeah, you would think. Usually they do when somebody hurts himself, bangs into something. Yeah, I don't know. He was pretty solid. No problem with him. He managed to come back after almost falling off the course, and obviously was very excited. He was like, his voice was like cracking. He was so excited talking to Casey afterwards. So that's good. I like when they have a lot of passion.
How tall was that guy?
I don't know.
Carter was like all legs, man. I don't know if it was his short shorts or something, but that dude looked tall.
Couldn't say for sure.
Just curious. Sorry.
It couldn't have been. If it's too far on either extreme, they mention it 1,000 times, so it can't be too far. He can't be that tall.
True.
Then we get to the women. Neither one of them can make up the warped wall. I actually enjoyed that race. I thought it was pretty good. I would rather have a close race with people struggling their way through than having one person completely blow away the other or somebody fall halfway through. Like, I want to see them go to the end. So,
I agree.
It was one of the more entertaining races for sure.
Yeah. I can't say either of the women blew me away, but I'll say they did really good for two competitors that are clearly, I can't say clearly, but probably inexperienced with this.
And one of the better matchups, actually, this whole UCLA versus Colorado was one actually not too bad of a matchup because the Reedy versus James Vaughan matchup wasn't too bad either. Reedy made a big jump, but he had blown past by Vaughan, so UCLA ended up winning. It was just a solid matchup overall. I actually really enjoyed that particular matchup, quite a bit.
Cool.
But moving on to the USC versus Stanford matchup, this was interesting.
This is when Julian came out to play, man.
Yeah, Julian just 8 seconds through the pole grasper just absolutely blew through that. But
so get this, guys.
Yeah. This
guy Julian, he as Rich was saying, he's blowing through all these obstacles, these upper body obstacles. This dude's a track athlete. He is a small, skinny little dude, and he is blowing through these rock climbers and all these guys that have all this grip strength and stuff. I was like, what is going on? Props to this kid, man.
But then he almost lost it at the wall because he ended up hesitating there. And then the rock climber comes off of the pole grasper and almost gets past him. But he did end up winning in the end. But it was it should have been a no-brainer at that point, but it definitely wasn't.
Dude, it's like Bizarro Land. I don't know, man. Like, if we were racing on this show, I feel like you would, like, fly past me like a marathon runner at this point.
On this episode, yeah.
Yeah.
And then one of the craziest falls we had of the episode, Roshana falling backwards off the platform on the rope swing. That was
hard to watch, dude. Like, I you fall on, like, if you're in the middle on that rope, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, there's just a long time to hang there before you fall, and it's like, just let go. You are not recovering from hanging there straight. And I thought that was I was like, oh my God. And at that point, I was thinking, that's a lot of rope swing fails. And then we had the ultimate one right after that one, which definitely bears mentioning, where both guys hit the water on the rope swing. Almost had both of them fail on it, as far as I could tell. But Ayala, it was the one that fell in, so Stanford ended up winning, so it pushed them to a tiebreaker.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, though, the story of USC, I think, is very much a team that has a very strong competitor or, like, member on it, and 2 all right team members on it. Would you agree?
Yeah, I guess that's probably fair.
In my opinion, Julian was a clear standout, held his own, like, got his team through a lot of the tough moments, and the 2 other team members were decent. They weren't bad. They weren't good. They're just all right.
Yeah, I guess that's probably fair.
And the 2 well-rounded teams made it to the end, but, yeah. It's hard, guys. This episode, none of the teams really stood out like crazy to either of us, so it's like, I don't really know what to say. It's just 2 decent teams made it to the end.
So, Nam, I know you're big on this guy, but we got to talk about this. In the tie-breaking round, he got way ahead. He ended up on the poles, and he got stuck. Like, he was like, props to him for holding on for as long as he did, because I have no idea how he did. But he was there forever. And then Olea almost falls on the stepping stones, but manages to catch it somehow, goes all the way through the poles, and manages to win in the end. Like Nam was stuck on that pole grasper forever.
Yeah, well, the thing is that these courses are made up primarily of a lot of transition obstacles, and then they have one, like, tougher technical obstacle at the very as the penultimate obstacle, which is a pole grasper. We see this on Team Ninja Warrior as well, like main Team Ninja Warrior. And, I feel like the show would be a lot more, I guess, closer knit if we had at least 2 technical obstacles. Just because, as you said, somebody like Nam, he can do really, really well on all these transition obstacles, lower body, all that stuff. But when you get to a technical obstacle, and it doesn't even have to be upper body, but if it has to do with something where you have to take your time and think about it and actually figure out the technique involved with this obstacle, that's where it can make a difference. And Nam just couldn't figure that out. And that was a perfect example of, you need that technique.
Yeah, so that knocked him out.
It was crazy to see that, though, right?
Yeah.
It was like a speed demon and then just, like, hit a brick wall.
Exactly. Like, I thought, well, what's going on? Like, this guy's been doing really well, and then all of a sudden he just hangs up completely. And then I thought he would fall, right? When you get hung up like that on there, if you're struggling that much, you would think you would fall relatively quickly. But no, he was there right till the guy hit the buzzer. Like, he was there a while.
Couldn't tell you. I don't know.
So then we ended up with the big relay showdown, the USC versus UCLA rematch, big hometown rivalry showdown. So it did kind of work out, for the crowd anyway. And they went back and forth in the relay. So they had the women go first. UCLA was way behind. But in the middle leg, Carter pulled ahead somehow. Like they he showed it. He did really well there to get them ahead. And then the craziest ending to an episode I think I've seen, Julian just missed the salmon ladder jump. Like he took a second to go test it out and stuff. And looked like he was going to struggle with it, but he just missed the pole completely, jumping for the salmon ladder.
Yeah, that was interesting. Well, I think it's clear that I don't think he's ever done this trampoline type stuff before, but I think this is the first time on Team Ninja where we've seen somebody with that, right? Because that's not like an obstacle, like a big jump for the trampoline. is just a transition to get up there, and I don't think it's really hard to do that. But I think he must have buckled completely in terms of hitting that trampoline to whiff that badly.
Yeah, I think that's the first time we've seen that for sure. So that knocked out USC. It was pretty close at that point too. It would have been nice to see them going through the next obstacles, but
it would have been great. I was really curious because when it was happening, I was like, oh man, Julian was so strong, on the pole grasper. I'm really curious how well he'll do on the other ones. But they just did a replay and Julian completely buckled with his knees. So yeah, that's definitely a first. And I don't know. I have to imagine nobody on his team, well, the other guy on the team probably didn't have experience on trampolines either, or maybe they just didn't think about it. But you can see he was really nervous about that. And I'm just really curious to see what was going on in their minds when planning out who would run each part of the leg or the relay. Yeah, I'm really curious to see what that conversation was like.
Yeah, so that means 2 of the 3 episodes we've watched so far have been decided on the salmon ladders.
Oh man, that's a good point. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we have some more finishers as we go along. I like watching. I was kind of hoping for some rope climb competitions going, but we'll see how it goes.
Who'd have thunk at this point, man? The front runner to win this whole thing is the team of the nerds, man.
MIT is still looking really good.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you see all these teams, these young, buff, all athletic teams, and then you see little tiny MIT. They're like, oh, we're going to win it all, and they're the front runners, bro. That's crazy. But I love it because, once again, be athletic as you want, but you need that technique. I love it.
Yeah, so we'll be back again next week for the next.
Hold up, man. Oh, who do you think's gonna win? Who would you nominate for the athletically profound athlete?
If I had to pick from this bunch, probably Carter, I guess.
Carter, wow. So for me, let me give you my mentality. It's between 3 athletes. It's between Carter, it's between Julian, and it's between Nam. And the reason is, even though Nam and Julian had some weaknesses, I feel like Carter was just kind of solid all around, but not amazing all around. Where Nam was incredibly amazing in the lower body awareness and everything. And I think Julian was so amazing in the upper body and the speed. If I have to give it to one, I think I'd give it to Julian, actually. He made one small mistake with that trampoline, but I can't knock him fully for that when it compared to everything else. I think if we were to put Julian up against Carter, I have to give it to Julian.
Really? Maybe. I thought Carter was the most consistent one. I liked his enthusiasm and, taking the blood and the bump. He didn't lose any of his matchups, and he did a really good job of catching up in the relay. So, I mean, to me, he kind of stood out as from that perspective.
Yeah, you make some good points. I don't know. I think maybe we'll have 2 athletically profound team or members today, okay? So we got Carter and we got Julian because I like both.
There we go.
I wish I can give it to Nam because he was so damn impressive to me. But I can't overlook, that dude just didn't know what he was doing on those pole graspers. I can't overlook that one.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that is it. That was it for this episode. We'll be back to cover the next one. And
let's hope next episode's better, man. I mean, you gotta go out of your way to get lower than this.
One thing I do want to mention that I noticed this episode, which I hadn't previously, I think the stepping stones, I think the key difference is going to be when they run the regular season is they won't be able to go in a straight line. I think the big pads in the middle will actually be needed because the way they have it, the 2 sides, they can just run straight across. They have 4 little pads. But I think they'll be taking out every second one, and they'll have to go to the middle pads, like shared stepping stones. So I something to watch for.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I think the bigger concern with the stepping stones is the fact that they tilt, right, and of how you land. But also the surface area is very flat, very soft, where if you have any non-traction on your shoes, you're going to slip right off those things. And I think that makes for an amazingly cool obstacle. And I was really disappointed with the ones they have on this show because it's way too nerfed. It's way too easy. But there's a lot of hidden little intricacies to those dancing stones, which I really, really enjoy. And I'm really looking forward to that again. And I swear, on season 2, nobody has the excuse of not knowing what the heck's up with those things. If we see some people just trying to jump over those things and sliding off and like falling on their butts, I give them no sympathy.
All right, so we'll see how that washes out with the main crew. But
dude, I'm gonna lose it. If like I see an episode of like 5 people falling on those damn dancing stones. I'm like, what are you doing?
I'm more worried about people going out on the rope swing the way we're going here. So hopefully they'll be able to figure out that incredibly complex obstacle by the next episode.
Dude, I'm getting heated just thinking about it. I can't the American Ninjas have no excuses. I'm telling you guys, I'm coming for you. If you do that, I'm coming for you. Look out.
All right. So looking at the National Ninja League, they were in Apex NorCal. And they jumped right into the action this time with Seth Rogers. I described it as a very windy course, and for the life of me, I can't...
What did that mean?
What is he talking about? Do you think somebody made a note that it was a very windy course, and maybe he said windy instead?
That's a better guess than I have. I mean,
I'm like, it's an indoor course. How was it windy? But yeah, so Seth Rogers got 3rd place. He gets stuck on the slider dismount, and he mentioned that later on people figured it out. And then when you see it in the video, it makes a lot of sense. So the last obstacle is like this really long pole slider, I guess you call it. And everybody else later just kind of launches themselves along it really fast so that they can dismount easily, whereas he was just stuck at the end trying to figure out how to dismount a pretty good gap. Mm-hmm. From a standstill, which was a lot harder.
Yeah, were there any obstacles that really stood out to you? I mean, in my opinion, there were no like super out there obstacles, but there are some creative ones that I thought were kind of neat. The one that really stood out more than anything else was this really wide trapeze bar where you have to grip over your entire wrist, which seems like it's hard, and then do a transition to a small cliffhanger. And I thought that was kind of a cool transition. But other than that, it was kind of straightforward, in my opinion.
I love, actually, in the next one, so for the second place, Sean Darling Hammonds, there was I love that obstacle with this. There's a circle slider into a cliffhanger. So,
That's the one I was thinking of, sorry.
Yeah, it's
cool. Not the trapeze bar, it's a circle slider to it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's really neat the way they have it built, because they swing in a full circle, and you'd have to transition really quickly, when you'd have to adjust on the fly so you don't see it until kind of the last second and have to jump across.
Yeah, it looks like you only get one shot, right? And that's what I like, is that it's an obstacle where it's like you need to time that perfectly.
Yeah, I think it's a great obstacle. And then first place we had Sean Bryan. It was his home gym. Home gym sounds bad. It's where he trains, and he flew through the whole thing. I couldn't comment much on it. He just blazed through the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Moving on to the women, we had 3rd place Jerry Dorilio, who we're familiar with from last year. The crooked ladder thing that they had going on there looked really tough. It just looked like it'd be a hard dismount, but she did manage to do it. And she fell on something called the Impossiballs, which is basically like the Cannonball Alley deal.
Yeah, it's just Cannonball Alley, but at different angles. It's neat.
And second place was Sandy Zimmerman, who seems to have come out of nowhere. I've never heard that name before, but wow, she looked amazing on this. She was so good. She beat the Impossiballs, the warped wall, the salmon ladder she did really fast. Just all around, an amazing, I'm going to say rookie, maybe, because Chris didn't seem to be very familiar with her either. But she ended up falling on a lache to the big trapeze that you mentioned earlier, the bigger grip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she seemed to be really good. Really great core strength. I mean, it looked like she had a 6-pack or an 8-pack. I was like, geez. Yeah, good on her. I don't know much about her, but she definitely seems like she's built at least for this sport.
Yeah, she locked off on the Impossiballs perfect 90 degrees. Like, she's looked really, really strong. I'm really interested to see if we see her back. Mm-hmm. I guess we'll see her in the finals because she qualified by being in second place. So there we go. And in first place, we had Anna Schumacher, who we did see last year, but she's much stronger this year. She's doing much better. She actually ended up finishing the course, which we don't see very often, especially from the women. So that's fantastic. Good job, Anna.
Yeah, she impressed me a lot. She seemed very comfortable and fluid with all the obstacles, and you can tell she has a lot of upper body strength, and I don't know, all around she really impressed me. She's somebody you might want to keep an eye out for. She's I think she might be a dark horse.
All right. Well, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you all for tuning in again. This episode may be out a little bit later. I'm hoping it's still going to be Friday when I do release it. And I hope you know, we probably should have apologized sooner that they will be coming out a little bit later in the week because of scheduling and trying to get actually find the episodes online. Just because it's Esquire instead of NBC, it's a little tricky, especially when you're out of country and they don't provide options for you for watching them. Hint, hint, anybody at NBC that's listening or Esquire that's listening, make some options available for international viewers. So I'll get it out as soon as I can every week, but it will tend to be Fridays, I would imagine, and possibly a late Friday this time.
It's all good. I think everybody needs a rest after this episode. Like, oh boy.
But if you'd like to reach out to us, you can reach us at rich@ninjapodcast.com. We are at Ninja Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. And Bijan, if they want to reach you directly, how do they do that?
Yeah, hit me up at Bijan151. That is Bijan 151. Twitter and Instagram, guys.
All right, thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a great week.
Peace, guys.